Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we are going to be going over the all-new 2022 Chevy Silverado ZR2. We're going to get into the kind of unofficial pricing that has been announced on the truck, what this means for the ZR2, and basically just get into whether or not the ZR2 is going to be a flop before it has even been released. And so with all that being said, let's hop right into the video. Now let's start things off by going over the big news, and that is the unofficial pricing that has been released on the ZR2. And when I say unofficial, this is pretty much what the pricing is going to be. It might change by a few $100 here or there. But anyways, the ZR2 is going to start at $66,795, which is more expensive than the base price of a Raptor, which starts at $65,840. And that's pretty crazy, but the crazier thing is the sibling vehicle to the ZR2, the GMC Sierra AT4X, is going to start at like $74,000, $75,000. And so makes the ZR2 look like it's a good value compared to the GMC counterpart, which is pretty crazy. But yeah, let's talk about this pricing. So since the ZR2 is going to start at a higher price than the Raptor, that means that people are going to be cross-shopping this with a Raptor. And that is outside the fact of whether or not this actually competes with a Raptor from a capability standpoint. And so let's get into all of that. So first off, if you guys haven't seen my first ZR2 video, let's talk about the specs that the ZR2 is going to contain. The first spec is going to be front and rear lockers, just like the Colorado ZR2. It's going to come with 33-inch tires as standard from the factory, and that's the only option you can get. It's going to be lifted a little bit higher than a Trail Boss. The Trail Boss already has a 2-inch lift from the factory. The ZR2 is going to sit even higher. And then the other big news is the ZR2 has a sculpted front end to give it a better approach angle. And then they are going to change things a little bit with the exhaust setup in the rear and with the bumpers as well in the rear to make it so the departure angle is a little bit better. And it's going to have the active shocks from Multimatic. They're the spool valve shocks. They're the same shocks that are on the Colorado ZR2. Obviously, they're going to have to be beefed up for the Silverado because it's a much bigger vehicle. But all you need to know is the shocks are fantastic at absorbing things. And with the Colorado, you can literally jump that truck from the factory just like a Raptor. And so pretty advanced stuff. And so on paper, this truck sounds, pretty good. Again, it's got really good shocks. It's going to have pretty good ground clearance. It's got pretty decent tires, and it's going to be, kind of all about crawling with the front and rear lockers and everything. And so, yeah, sounds good to start off with. But let's get into the Raptor now that it is going to be directly competing against. Now, it's going to be competing against the base model Raptor, right, if their base price is the same. And a base model Raptor has 35s from the factory, so the Raptor's already got an advantage from a tire perspective. And then moving on from that, the Raptor does not have a front locker. It only has a rear locker, so it looks like the ZR2 wins with that. And then if we get into shocks, the Raptor has the live valve from Fox, which is a really good system and setup. And the Raptor does sit higher than a regular F-150, so it's lifted just like the ZR2 is going to be. And then as for suspension changes, the Raptor compared to regular F-150 has the 5-link coil suspension in the back end, which makes it ride a lot smoother, stay more planted off-road, and it gives it a much better flex when you're going over terrain. And then just like the ZR2, it's got a sculpted front end and rear end that make it so it has better approach and departure angles, right? So it's a little bit better at crawling. And so again, on paper, it sounds like they're pretty competitive with each other because they both have great shocks. They both have great suspension. The only thing that the ZR2 has going against it against the Raptor, again, on paper, is that it's got 33s, whereas the Raptor has 35s as standard. And then it has leaf springs still, whereas the Raptor has coil suspension, which coil suspension always does a lot better off-road. And so then, again, when you look at it on paper, you're like, oh, it kind of makes sense for these to be about the same price. But here's the deal. First off, the Raptor, right, has such a big name. ZR2, right, it's got something behind it, but it's not quite as much as what the Raptor has. And then the other thing is, the Raptor is a full-blown wide-body Baja truck from the factory, whereas the ZR2 doesn't get that same treatment. That's what I originally thought the ZR2 was going to be. I thought it was going to be a wide-body Baja vehicle, and it doesn't have that. So that's something that is also going against it, is you don't really get super unique looks with this compared to a Trail Boss, right? I'm sure that, if you're a Chevy fanatic and, just a car fanatic like me in general, you'll be able to tell the difference instantly when you see a ZR2 versus a Trail Boss. But if you're just a regular person, you probably won't even be able to tell the difference between a ZR2 and a regular Silverado. Whereas everyone knows what a Raptor is when you see it. When you see a Raptor, you're like, boom, that is a Ford Raptor, right? It's the same issue that the TRX has with the Rebel, right? I own a TRX, and so many people are like, wait, is that a Rebel? Oh, it's actually a TRX, right? And so the ZR2 is going to kind of suffer from that same sibling-itis, whatever you want to call it. Now, the next big thing that kind of prevents it from fully competing with the Raptor, aside from, you know, the looks department and then also from the suspension, because, you know, you can't really compete in that Baja segment at this point if you don't have coil suspension. Like, that's just pretty much an unsaid thing at this point, because the two best trucks in that segment right now, the TRX and the Raptor, both have 5-link coil suspension, is also the powertrain of the ZR2. It doesn't get a special powertrain. The Raptor has a twin-turbo V6 that is tuned specifically for the Raptor, and the transmission is also tuned for the Raptor to where it's super smooth and super quick with the shifts, whereas the ZR2 is just getting the 6.2 that you can get in an LTZ or a High Country or the regular Trail Boss, and it doesn't sound like they're going to do any special tuning with the transmission, so it's not really going to drive any sportier compared to a regular Silverado. It's just going to have the same powertrain, just, you know, thrown in. And so you're not really getting anything special from a powertrain perspective, whereas, again, with the Raptor, you are. You have that special V6 that's only in the Raptor, right? Yes, you can get 3.5-liter V6 in the other trucks, but it's not tuned the same with the transmission or with the engine. And also, it doesn't sound the same because the Raptor has its own active exhaust system. You know, we'll see what they do with the ZR2, but it sounds like they're just going to make the exhaust so that it doesn't go all the way out the bumper, so that it helps out with, again, the departure angle. And so it's probably going to sound the same, so you're not really getting anything special from that perspective either. And so you have this truck that is, you know, going to compete against the Raptor from a price point perspective, but it doesn't really seem like it's going to compete against the Raptor from, you know, a looks and performance perspective. And so it's going to be one of those things where this could be just a flop for Chevy because they didn't put quite enough into this truck. Now, I do want to get into giving the ZR2 the benefit of the doubt and get into some things that I'm kind of hoping for. So first off, this isn't official pricing. This probably is what it will be, like I said at the beginning of the video, but it's not 100% official. So maybe Chevy will end up lowering the base price of the ZR2 a little bit. We'll see what happens. Now, the other thing that I'm kind of hopeful for is the fact that the ZR2 is going to come a lot more loaded than a Raptor, and so the $66,000 base price is going to be pretty much going to be like the price of the ZR2. You might be able to add a couple options here and there, but I don't think that the ZR2 is going to have the price range that the Raptor has. If you take a base model Raptor, it's, you know, $65,000. But most Raptors are loaded up to about $72,000, $73,000 for a 35 package. For a really loaded 35 package, it's like $78,000. And then once you do a 37 performance package, you're, you know, a high 70s on the low end to, you know, mid to high 80s, depending on how many options you add to the truck. So there's a huge price swing, and most of the Raptors you see on the market are not going to be that $65,000 base price that you're seeing as the MSRP. They're going to be $70,000, $80,000 trucks. And so I think that the ZR2 might take the approach where most equipment is standard with the truck, and so then, you know, again, the base price might be more expensive than the Raptor, but a fully loaded ZR2 might only be $70,000, not $80,000. But if that's not the case, that'll be even more worrisome, because then if a loaded up ZR2 is like $80,000, then it's really like, would you rather have this, you know, beefed up Silverado, or would you rather have, again, a Raptor, right? And then the other problem with the ZR2 is, you know, some people might be going, okay, well, yeah, it's got a V8 engine and the Ford doesn't, and people love V8s, but the ZR2 is so close in price to the base price of a Ram TRX that, again, the Ram TRX is a better truck off-road than the ZR2 is going to be in most circumstances, right? Not all circumstances, but most circumstances. And it's got a supercharged V8, and so it still kind of wins out. And so the ZR2 isn't really doing anything special for this segment. Yes, having a front locker is great, but it's a full-size pickup truck. How often are you going to be using a front locker with a full-size pickup truck? I can understand that in a mid-size pickup truck or something like a Wrangler or a Bronco that's small enough to fit into a bunch of terrain that you're going to be doing that. But with full-size pickup trucks, most people that buy these trucks and use these trucks aren't usually going into circumstances where you're going to need front and rear lockers. They're not doing that type of crawling because the vehicle is just so long and so wide that it can't fit into a lot of those places. For example, the off-road course that I use for all of my videos, I can't fit anything bigger than a mid-size truck on the crawling course that I use. That's it. Mid-size truck, Jeep, Wrangler, Ford, Bronco can fit in that course, but anything that is a full-size truck can't fit because of the width of the vehicles and also the length as well. It doesn't allow them to fit in that course. And so I feel like Chevy should have spent less time with the front locker and maybe more time with, you know, changing up the suspension and also making the ZR2 a wide-body Baja truck. So I noticed that the video is going on for way too long. I try to keep these videos on the second channel on the shorter side. This one obviously was not, but I just want to kind of cap things off for today's video. So what I want you guys to let me know in the comment section down below is, you know, what do you think about the new Silverado ZR2? Do you guys agree with kind of what I say about what Chevy should do for the changes? And again, to reiterate that, I think they should, you know, maybe push it out a little bit in terms of the release time and do some sort of wide body package on it so it looks more aggressive, looks more unique, and then give it some sort of unique powertrain. It doesn't have to be as crazy as the TRX, but just something that's a little bit higher performance than what you get in a regular Silverado, and then rework something with the suspension so that it can handle high-speed stuff like the Raptor and like the TRX. Leaf springs are great, but they just aren't the same as coil suspension off-road. And then also what you guys think about the pricing, if you think it's way too overpriced, if it should be priced less expensive than where it should be and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, with all that being said, I will see all of you in that next video.